They say progress is inevitable, but no one tells you what it costs until it's knocking at your fence line, dressed in concrete and legal jargon. My name is Cal Weaver. I was born on this land, just like my father and his father before him. For 80 years, we've plowed its soil, weathered its storms, and buried our dead beneath its trees. But all that history didn't mean a damn thing to the people who moved in next door with their golf carts, bylaws, and a hunger for expansion. They thought I'd sell. They thought I'd give in. What they didn't know is that when you threaten a farmer's land, you're not just starting a fight. You're waking up a legacy. Hudson Valley had a way of holding its breath before the storm. The fields, the trees, even the gravel roads, all seemed to stand still, watching. And on that morning, so did Cal Weaver. He stood at the edge of his 110-acre farm, boots rooted in mud, arms crossed, staring at the newly placed metal post that gleamed like a knife in his pasture. It wasn't just a marker, it was a message. Private property, maintained by Orchard Heights, HOA. Trespassers will be prosecuted. Trespassers? On his own land. Cal didn't say a word. He just turned and walked back toward the barn, each step slower than the last. There were storms you could see coming, black clouds over the hills, the sharp crackle of a lightning-charged sky. But this one had crept in slowly, paved in concrete, painted in beige, and wrapped in covenants. 3 years ago, Orchard Heights was just a rumor at the farmers market. Some planned development backed by hedge fund money, built for city folks wanting a taste of the countryside without the actual dirt. Now, it loomed across the eastern edge of Cal's farm. Rows of white-fenced homes, with manicured lawns, a golf cart path, and a granite sign declaring, "Welcome to Orchard Heights, where legacy meets luxury." Legacy, his ass. They'd built their green belt along the property line, barely 30 feet from his fence. And when residents started complaining about the smell of manure, the early morning rooster calls, the combine engine echoing through their yoga sessions, the HOA started sending letters. At first, Cal ignored them. Then they escalated. A $250 fine for noise pollution after harvest, a $500 warning for unauthorized agricultural structures, his hay barn, built in 1961. And now this, staking claim to a stretch of road that had been used by his family since FDR was in office. Cal had seen men like Blake Carson before. Smooth, well-spoken, the kind who used words like revitalization and long-term growth to hide land grabs. Blake was the HOA president, formerly a Wall Street investment manager turned community strategist. And from the moment they'd met, Blake made it clear. Cal's land was an obstacle to be managed. Later that afternoon, Cal received an official letter. He opened it at the kitchen table, beside the old wood stove, still stained with years of coffee spills. The envelope had that sharp legal weight. Inside, a formal notice stating that the access road leading to his southern field interfered with HOA property and would be closed to ensure community safety. Effective immediately. He read it twice, 3 times. That road was his only way in and out for equipment. No other route could support tractors or trailers. There was an old fire path to the north, but it crossed a protected wetland and was unusable for anything larger than a pickup. He grabbed his phone and called Ava Lynn. "You remember that favor you owe me?" he asked. Ava sighed. "Oh, I had a feeling this call was coming. I need you here, now." The next morning, Ava pulled into the driveway in her dusty Subaru, coffee in hand, briefcase in the back. She'd once been a top real estate attorney in Albany, before walking away from the big firms. Burned out, disillusioned, tired of fighting for the wrong side, Cal had helped her buy a small parcel of land after she left it all behind. She hadn't forgotten. "This is escalation," she said, scanning the documents he laid out on the table. "They're testing how far they can push before you fight back." "I'm already backed against the fence." Ava raised an eyebrow. "Then you'd better be ready to swing." Cal nodded. "They want the land." She paused. "You think they're planning to expand?" He leaned back in his chair. There's a rumor about a phase 2, a clubhouse, a vineyard, maybe even a luxury lodge, but they need my side of the creek for access. Ava flipped through the county records. Blake knows what he's doing. But this road has been in use for over 70 years. You've got history on your side and law. Cal stared out the window. History doesn't mean much these days unless it turns a profit. A knock came at the door. Cal opened it to find Sarah, his daughter, standing there with a small suitcase and a little girl gripping her hand. "Hi, Dad," she said softly. "Mind if we stay a while?" Sarah Weaver hadn't stepped foot on her father's farm in almost 10 years. But standing there now, holding her daughter's hand, she felt the ground hum beneath her boots. There was something different in the air. Not just summer coming early, but something colder. A quiet war was brewing in the dirt. "You didn't say anything about this," she muttered to Cal as they walked along the fence line, now suspiciously aligned with fresh orange markers. "I didn't want you worrying," he said. "You've got enough on your plate." "Dad, they cut off your access road. This isn't some zoning dispute, it's siege warfare." Sarah was a software designer in Seattle, but she'd studied law before changing paths. And what she saw in those HOA notices wasn't just overreach. It was a strategy, legal language as a weapon, pressure through policy. Her daughter, Ellie, looked up. "Why did they block the road, Grandpa?" Cal smiled tightly. "Because they forgot who they were dealing with." Inside the barn that night, Cal and Ava set up an impromptu war room. Documents strewn across hay bales, aerial maps pinned to the wall, and a laptop showing county property lines blinking red. "This new survey they're using?" Ava pointed to a digital file. "It was submitted 6 weeks ago. Quietly. I checked the filing. It's from a private firm in Albany. And guess who signed off on it?" "Don't say Blake Carson," Cal growled. "His sister-in-law. Civil engineer. Technically licensed. But here's the thing. This survey contradicts the 1943 federal deed your grandfather filed. And guess which version the county just accepted into their system?" Cal slammed his hand down on the table. "They're laundering history," Ava nodded. "It gets worse. I pulled campaign records. The county registrar, who approved the new boundary. Blake donated to his last re-election. Big check. Hidden under his wife's name, but same address." Silence settled over them. Sarah walked in with a mug of coffee, catching the tail end. "You always said politics were poison, Dad. Looks like they've spread into the soil." Cal took the mug. "And I'm about to be the antidote." The next morning, Colton, the teenager from the nearby ranch, showed up with a drone. He'd been helping Cal with irrigation the past few summers, and today, he brought more than elbow grease. "I got video," he said, pulling out a tablet. "Caught them digging on the south edge. Look." The footage showed Orchard Heights contractors trenching near the creek, on Cal's side, diverting water toward a newly poured concrete basin. "They're building a runoff system," Ava said, her tone sharp, "which means they've already assumed ownership. And they're draining directly into the protected wetland," Sarah added, eyes narrowing. "Illegal," Ava confirmed. "We've got them. But we need more." That night they launched a quiet campaign. Sarah coded a simple website, holdtheline.org. Within 48 hours, it had over 5,000 views. Locals, former landowners, even journalists started paying attention. Residents in Orchard Heights anonymously messaged the site. Stories of raised dues, unannounced special assessments, and intimidation when questioning HOA board decisions. Cal stood in front of his tractor the next day as a reporter from a local news outlet approached him. "You really plan to take this to court?" she asked. "I plan to take this to the people," he replied. "Let them see what's happening out here. They paved over a lot of things to build that neighborhood, but I'm still standing." Behind him, Colton's drone buzzed high above the fence line, streaming live. By week's end, the whispers had become headlines. The local paper ran a story with the headline, "Farmer Faces Off with HOA over Land Rights," and he may be right. Then came the morning show interviews, the blog reposts, the radio segment titled The Road They Blocked. By Friday, even a regional news station had aired drone footage showing Orchard Heights contractors trenching illegally on what appeared to be Cal's land. But Cal wasn't interested in fame. He was interested in the truth. In the barn, now fully converted into a legal bunker, Sarah laid out a plan of attack. Ava had compiled enough evidence to trigger a formal injunction, but they were still racing against time. Once they finished the stormwater connection to the basin, she said, they can argue established use. It'll complicate things. Then we don't let them finish, Cal said. We stop them first, and we stop them loud. They called it the Farm Line Gathering. What started as a simple town hall quickly evolved into a full-blown community rally, set up along the fence line between Cal's fields and the HOA's southern boundary. The irony was intentional. Flyers circulated. Sarah created a Facebook event. Local musicians volunteered to play. Food trucks parked along the gravel path. Colton brought in a portable stage. Ava invited press. And Cal? He brought the truth. Dozens of Orchard Heights residents came, some in lawn chairs, others reluctantly, crossing that invisible line between silence and curiosity. Among them was Lisa Morrow, a nurse who'd received 3 decor code violations for growing tomatoes in her front yard. As Cal stepped on stage, the crowd quieted. "I'm not here to preach," he began, voice steady. "I'm not a politician. I don't even own a smartphone. I'm just a farmer trying to protect what's mine." He lifted a framed photo, his grandfather in 1946, standing beside a hand-dug well on the same land. This driveway, this pasture, this well, it's not just dirt, it's history. And someone decided that wasn't worth keeping. He paused. No anger, no shouting, just truth. "They blocked my road because they thought I'd fold, that I'd sell, that I'd vanish into memory. But they forgot something. I remember." The applause wasn't thunderous. It was real, honest. A slow build from people tired of being afraid of their own HOA boards. That night, something changed. Lisa Morrow posted video of the speech. It hit 100,000 views in 2 days. One HOA board member anonymously sent Ava copies of internal emails, communications between Blake and a real estate developer planning Phase 2, a boutique spa, private villas, and a rural golf experience, all of it overlapping Cal's land. But the biggest shock came from an unexpected source, the county zoning clerk, who reached out to Ava after seeing the video. "He didn't say it on record," Ava explained, "but he hinted the new survey was pushed through using undue influence." "Bribery?" Sarah asked. "Pressure," Ava replied. "A promotion promise. They want him gone, fast." Then came the hit. 2 days later, Cal woke to find his fence slashed. Oil poured into one of his irrigation wells. Spray paint across his barn. Sell or starve. He didn't say a word. He just stared, fists clenched. Then quietly called the sheriff, and then the drone team. Ava arrived an hour later with a fire in her eyes. They just lost their leverage, and she filed a formal police report, submitted all footage, and delivered a package directly to the state attorney's office. Inside was everything. The doctored surveys, the fake stormwater permit, the HOA financials showing community landscaping funds wired to a shell LLC owned by Blake's college roommate. The next day, a subpoena was issued. The day after that, Blake Carson vanished from public view. Then came the hit. 2 days later, Cal woke to find his fence slashed. Oil poured into one of his irrigation wells. Spray paint across his barn. Sell or starve. He didn't say a word. He just stared, fists clenched. Then, quietly called the sheriff, and then the drone team. Ava arrived an hour later with a fire in her eyes. They just lost their leverage. She filed a formal police report, submitted all footage, and delivered a package directly to the state attorney's office. Inside was everything. The doctored surveys, The fake stormwater permit, the HOA financials showing community landscaping funds, wired to a shell LLC owned by Blake's college roommate. The next day, a subpoena was issued. The day after that, Blake Carson vanished from public view. And so, Cal filed suit. Not just against the HOA, but against the developer, the surveyor, the county, and the shell companies behind it all. The suit alleged fraud, trespass, conspiracy, and endangerment of protected land. Ava looked at him across the table. "You know, this could take years, right?" Cal nodded. "I'm not fighting to win tomorrow," he said. "I'm fighting so no one has to do this again." The courtroom wasn't packed. There was no jury box filled with wide-eyed strangers. No sea of media cameras. Just a modest municipal chamber, the scent of old paper, and the sound of nervous breath. But for Cal Weaver, this room might as well have been the front line of his grandfather's war. Across from him sat Blake Carson, tanned, polished, and notably paler than usual. His attorney whispered furiously, but Blake barely listened. The momentum had shifted. Everyone knew it. Sarah sat beside her father, her laptop open, eyes sharp. Ava stood behind the podium, composed, confident, and absolutely relentless. "In summary, Your Honor," Ava said, voice steady, "we contend that the HOA not only falsified survey documents to seize land unlawfully, but also conspired to reroute protected water flows and intimidate Mr. Weaver into vacating land he has held for nearly a century. The evidence is extensive." The judge, a woman named Judge Brantley with storm-gray eyes and a reputation for cutting through nonsense, nodded slowly. "And you're requesting what, specifically?" "Immediate removal of all obstructive structures," Ava replied. "A permanent injunction against future development on Mr. Weaver's land, and a criminal referral to the state attorney general." A quiet gasp rippled through the courtroom. Blake's lawyer stood to rebut, but it was weak. He tried to shift blame to the survey company, claimed Cal had hosted illegal gatherings, implied the drainage project had been approved in error. Then, Cal stood. "Permission to speak, Your Honor?" Judge Brantley nodded. "I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a politician. I'm just a man trying to hold on to what my family built," he said. "For 3 generations, we've raised crops, tended animals, and watched over this land like it was our child." He took out a small photo, black and white, weathered. "My grandfather stood on this exact soil in 1946, when Orchard Heights was still a field. That road they tried to take? It's not a luxury. It's a lifeline." He paused, looked toward Blake. "They didn't just block a path. They tried to erase a history." Judge Brantley looked at him for a long moment. Then she turned to the clerk. "Prepare the order." 2 weeks later, the backhoe arrived. Not Cal's, the county's. Under order of the court, the barriers were removed. Each block lifted like a weight off Cal's chest. And watching from his front porch, coffee in hand, he didn't cheer. He just sat still, like a tree weathering the last wind after a long storm. Blake Carson, he resigned from the HOA. The state launched a formal investigation. Turns out those community landscaping budgets funded not just illegal surveys, but a private pool renovation at his vacation home in Montauk. He's now facing civil penalties and potential jail time. But Cal wasn't interested in revenge. What mattered more was what came after. 1 month later, on a crisp fall morning, the first annual Hudson Valley Harvest Festival opened on the land once threatened to be erased. Cal donated a portion of his pasture to host it. Kids from Orchard Heights played tag among hay bales. Their parents bought jams and honey from farmers who'd nearly sold everything. And under a refurbished barn roof, a band played old folk songs. Sarah gave a speech. Ellie clutched her hand. Cal stood in the back, arms crossed, nodding. "Think we made a dent?" Ava asked, sidling up beside him. "We planted something," Cal said quietly. "That's how everything starts." She smiled. As the sun dipped low, casting golden light over the fields, Cal walked to the edge of his property. The same line they'd once tried to move. And right there, he saw it. A new sign. Not metal. Not HOA made. Just wood carved by hand. The Weaver Line, Est 1943, protected by memory, guarded by truth. He touched the top of it, then turned toward the festival behind him. Music. Laughter. Smoke from roasted corn drifting through the air. For the first time in years, Cal Weaver felt peace. Not the kind that comes from silence. The kind that's earned, because you didn't back down.